Hi and welcome to A Life in Chapters. Today it's episode 2, Why Books Still Matter, Even When Life Feels Too Full. So this isn't a fancy podcast, no intro music, no editing, just me speaking directly into my mic from wherever I happen to be, sharing thoughts and stories about books, journaling, creative work, and the slower rhythms of a meaningful life. Now, if that sounds like your kind of space, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. So today I want to talk about books. Yay! Not in a deep literary analysis kind of way. I'm not that kind of reader, and not in a way that's going to tell you kind of which 5 books to read this summer or how to finish 100 books in a year. I might do a bit of that, not the 100 books in a year though. Today I want to talk about books in a way that they've always mattered to me, and maybe to you too. As comfort, as joy, as escape and connection and imagination, as something that has always been there, even when everything else was changing. Because even now, when life feels busy or overwhelming, or just a bit much, maybe you've been looking at the news, books still matter, and maybe they matter even more. So I've always loved reading. One of my earliest memories is sitting with a big, thick book of fairy stories, proud that I could read it myself. I didn't just want to enjoy the stories quietly, I wanted to read them aloud, to share them with someone. Now, luckily, I had the perfect audience. When I was 6, my parents bought a shop in a little village in Kent. It was a bit of an odd one. It sold shoes upstairs, toys downstairs. A strange mix, but for a 6-year-old, it was magical, especially the toy section. Down the wide wooden stairs, the light would drop a little as I walked down, but I didn't mind, because once you reached the bottom, there it was. Toys, floor to ceiling, dolls, games, Star Wars figures, Weebles, if you know, you know. And best of all, down there was a woman who worked in the toy department. We'll call her Mrs. L. Now, to me, she was the most glamorous person I had ever seen. She dressed in sort of 1940s style, always pencil skirts, beautiful blouses, perfect makeup, platinum blonde hair. I was obsessed with her as a little 6-year-old and how she looked. Even better, she was kind in that patient, generous way that not all adults are with children. So every day my dad would pick me up from school and bring me back to the shop. And every day I would trot down those stairs with my fairy tale book tucked under my arm, ready to read. Now, if there were customers, I had to wait patiently behind the counter, but the moment they were gone, I was off, reading aloud, sharing stories. Mrs. L always made time for it. Now, looking back, she probably wanted a bit of peace. She probably wanted to sit behind the counter and have a cup of tea. I can imagine her groaning a little inside as she heard me clip-clopping down those stairs again in my sandals, but she never showed it. She listened, she encouraged me, and I think that's one of the reasons I still associate books with warmth, with safety, with being seen, and of course I was always encouraged to read by my family, by my parents, by my grandparents, and so it became something that I just loved. However, Mrs. L didn't stop there. She started bringing in books of her own. So we both loved spooky things like real-life ghost stories, the weirder the better. And even though I was quite young, I remember us leaning over a huge hardback book of paranormal photos, both of us wide-eyed, convinced it must all be true. I don't remember if I had nightmares, maybe I did, but even if I did, it was worth it, because it wasn't just about the books, it was about sharing them, the act of reading together, the connection it gave me to someone older, someone glamorous, someone who made time for me. That toy shop was a magical world. I was lucky. We lived above the shop, so I could wander down whenever I got bored, peek in the stockroom, gaze at new toys, daydream, but always I came back to the books. And when we eventually moved away, when I was about 11, when my parents sold the shop and that chapter ended, I really did miss a lot of things. I miss spinning around in the aisles, free. I miss sneaking into the shoe stockroom and scaring myself half to death in the gloomy light. I missed Mrs. L and in fact all the ladies who worked in the store. But more than anything, I missed having that space where stories lived and could be shared out loud in full joy. Around the same time, I started going to the library regularly. And I don't know if it's still true now, but back then you could take out 12 books on a single child's library card. And you better believe I maxed that out every single time. I'd come home with my stack of books, read as many as I could, and then just a few days later, I'd be begging my parents to take me back. Please, can we go back to the library? They'd look at me bemused, but we've only just been. But I couldn't help it. I just wanted more stories, more voices, more portals to other lives, other places, other feelings. And that's what books were for me. And honestly, that's what they still are. Now, as I got older, of course, life changed. School got busier, work took over, bills, deadlines, stress, all the usual. There were times I hardly read at all. Times when I couldn't bring myself to read. Times when I couldn't seem to finish a book, or when I forgot what it was like to lose myself in a story. And I think that's something a lot of us feel or we go through. We love books, we want to read, but we also feel too tired, too stretched, like our brains are full and our hearts are heavy. And opening a book feels like one more thing on a to-do list. But here's what I've learned recently. When I came back to reading a couple of years ago, came back in kind of full force. And what it was is that books wait. They don't expire, they don't guilt trip you, they're just there, quietly waiting for when you're ready. And when you are ready, when you sit down and you let yourself read, even for 10 minutes, something often softens, something shifts. It's not just about the story on the page, it's about the way reading slows your thoughts, the way it reminds you you're not alone, the way it anchors you back to curiosity, to imagination, to yourself. Books still matter, even when life feels too full. In fact, especially when life feels too full. They matter because they're a kind of gentle resistance. In a world that tells us to go faster, books slow us down. In a world that demands productivity, books instead offer presence. And in a world where everything is content, books are something deeper, something just for you. And I know maybe your attention span isn't what it used to be. Maybe you're reading one book a month instead of 10 a year ago. Maybe you're stuck in the middle of 5 different titles and haven't finished any of them. I'm the same, and that's okay. Reading isn't a competition. It isn't something you have to earn. It's a home you can return to in whatever way feels good. So maybe today's episode is really just an invitation, a way to remember your own reading story, to think about the books that shaped you, not because they were worthy or important, not because they were classics, but because they meant something, to open a book again without pressure. You don't have to read the newest thing. You don't have to finish it quickly. You don't even have to tell anyone what you're reading or that you're reading. You can just enjoy it, like I did, reading fairy stories out loud to Mrs. L, like I did begging to go back to the library. You can still be that version of yourself. That's what I've found anyway. The one who's hungry for stories. You just have to give her a little space again. Now, if you'd like to go deeper with the ideas from today, whether that's through journaling, book recommendations, or creative business tools, you'll find the show notes and extras at alifeinchapters.com. And if you'd like to support this podcast and be part of a cozy corner of the internet, come and join my Patreon. There are monthly journal prompts, a book club, creative business Q&As, and more. You can just head to patreon.com/alifeinchapters or click the link in the notes. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you soon.